Hi everyone, today we are going to discuss the persecution of Christians. So first of all, I'd like to thank Father NADIM for that. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Welcome, pleasure.
Thanks for coming here despite the terrible weather.
Welcome to London.
Yes, and thank to all of you who sent your questions. It means a lot to us. So the first question we received is, according to Open Doors USA, over 3,000 Christians were killed last year due to their faith. So this year we have already become aware of persecutions in China and killings in Russia. So, but despite all these numbers, all these facts, it kind of remains underreported. What do you think is that? What can explain this?
First of all, thank you for having me, and this is a very important subject. The topic is critical and very sensitive. First of all, I want to highlight one single important issue about it so that we are correctly understood. Talking about persecution does not mean in any way having the mentality of being victims. Because if we have this mentality, we are the victims, poor us, and we are persecuted, and this is horrible, we go into a mode of self-pity, and we start behaving like victims, and this is dangerous for any discussion or dialogue or trying to understand what is happening. So when we talk about persecution, we are not trying to portray Christians as we are the victims in the world. I refuse the logic of this victim mentality. But having said that, we have to acknowledge what is happening. And we have to acknowledge that the media, especially in the West, would not touch this subject at all. Because in the West, unfortunately, Christianity is very much linked to colonization. So a lot of wars between the West and the East, religion was part of the agenda. And also the missionaries who went to the East and the Far East and to other countries other than the Western countries, they went and they had a political agenda with them. So in this country, for example, the UK, people have a lot of thinking about Christianity in relationship to colonization. Because of that, they entered, especially in the UK, into a very difficult dilemma about Christianity. First of all, they know there is a huge history of Christianity in Europe and in the UK. Second, Christianity has a link to colonization and political agenda and wars. Third, we live in a secular world. Where does that fit? Because of that, the media doesn't touch this subject. So we need to raise awareness of what is happening without falling in the trap of colonization or politicizing the issue. Although a lot of cases we have of killing Christians, destroying churches, destroying, yes, a lot of Christian culture and people with the political agenda behind it. We have to admit that. So in Russia or in China or in the Middle East, still the persecution of Christians is very high. That comes with linking Christianity to the West. In the Middle East, we are looked at as allies to the West. So this is difficult for us. And in the West, they look at Christianity as a Western phenomenon. And they forget in the West that Christianity started in Syria, in the greater Syria, in Palestine. So it's a huge dilemma for Christianity, East and West. And the result is, of course, persecution and killing and alienation. We are looked at as foreigners in the Middle East. So as if we were imported as a religion. But we started there. Jesus Christ lived in the greater Syria and started everything there. And St. Paul became Christian on the road to Damascus. What more do we need?
Yes.
to call Christianity a Syrian religion?
Yes, it brings us back to that discussion we were having about the differentiation between religion and faith.
Oh, right. You touched on a critical subject, because I remember a very well-known German theologian. His name is Paul Tillich. He said, Christ came to save us from religion. And I believe with all my heart that Christianity was never intended by Jesus Christ to be a new religion. Yes, he continued the story of God in his action with humanity. Yes, he continued the story of faith, but he intended to redirect the relationship of humanity to God and with God. He never intended to establish a new religion. When faith becomes religion, things can go wrong, because faith becomes an institution. And in an institution, the human factor is very, very strong, with corruption and abuse, and of course there is the positive side. But we have to always remember that Christianity is not a religion. It's a way of life. It's a relationship, a living relationship with God through the risen Lord Jesus Christ. It's not ultimately the institution leading the faith.
Okay. So we have a question here. Son John Wright is asking you, how can Christians use their faith to be peacemakers even in the midst of persecution?
We are called by Jesus Christ to be peacemakers. We are called. When after the resurrection, Jesus said to his disciples, "Peace be with you. My peace I leave with you." So he is sending us as a message and messengers of peace to the world. If we are not like this, there is something wrong in our Christianity. Peacemaking belongs to the heart of Christianity, belongs to the essence of Christianity. And Jesus Christ is the Prince of Peace. We need to remember always, whether we are in the East or the West, or whether we are in the middle of troubles and wars or in peace, we need to be peacemakers and reconcilers in our communities. Otherwise, the church and our faith would have no meaning.
And do you think right now we are like this, we have a problem because many Christians remain silent about these, not only this persecution, but about conflicts as a whole?
You are bold in your questions. I like that. Beatrice, yes, there is silence about the persecution of Christians. There is a silence about what is happening, especially in the Middle East, since I'm from there and I'm from Syria. There is a silence even in the Western Church about what is happening. So we need to raise the awareness about what is happening so that we work together to stop it. And we need to work with not only with Christian leaders, with leaders with all religions. All religions are involved in the peacemaking and in the process. And that has to be absolutely clear.
And why do you think one of the questions we received is that, why do you think this kind of persecution has increased lately?
First of all, two things increased in the world. The first thing increased is Islamic fanaticism. And that impacted the persecution of Christians and increased the persecution of Christians. Because religious fanaticism is evil. And whether Islamic or Christian or Jewish or Hindu or whatever, any religious fanaticism is dangerous. And that impacted and increased the persecution of Christians. Second, what increased also is the fanaticism of secularism. So secularism, which is good. I am a secular priest. I do believe in the separation between politics and religion, in the ruling of the people. But I believe in the engagement of the political life. But not, religion should not rule societies. Otherwise, it's a disaster. But the increase of the atheistic perspective of secularism and the fanatical interpretation of this atheistic perspective of secularism impacted the persecution of Christians and increased the persecution of Christians. So I do believe that the whole world is suffering under, one way or another, a fanaticism, whether it is secular fanaticism, which leads to also violence, and religious fanaticism, which also leads to violence.
So one of the questions we received from a Brazilian student is that, for example, do you believe Europe's efforts to remove symbols of the Christian faith from public spaces has somehow contributed with this growing persecution? So as you said, do you believe it is linked to this somehow?
I don't mind removing religious symbols from public places, but I do find it difficult to understand the reason behind it. So if the reason that I'm embarrassed about my faith, no, this is unacceptable. If the reason is a maturity that we don't need that because we live together in harmony and peacefully, and religion belongs to the public arena but in a different way, I would engage with that. But the removal of Christian symbols in the West comes from not from maturity. It comes from a wrong understanding of Christianity. In a way, a lot of Western people are embarrassed about their faith. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to engage with it. And actually, the Muslims in Europe brought back faith into the public space and said to the Westerns, you don't want to talk about your faith? Fine. But you can't tell me not to talk about my faith. My faith belongs to my life and to the public. So suddenly, the church and the Christians and the seculars in the West, and especially in Europe, started thinking, does faith belong to the public space or the public arena or not? And suddenly we started talking about it again. And faith is back to discussion and talking and debates, and even in the university. And we are here now talking about religion.
Yes, that's true.
And I think this is very healthy. Europe for a long time, and this country also, we don't talk about religion. We talk about the weather, but not religion. So religion is for the church, those who go to church. No. Faith belongs to the public life. Faith is not, I always say, Beatrice, faith is a personal thing, but not a private thing. Faith is personal because this is my personal relationship with God. But it's not a private thing that nobody should ask me about or should touch it or talk about it. No. My faith is part of who I am, whether I'm a priest or not. I'm not talking because of this. No, I'm talking as a believer. It should be part of who I am, and I should not be embarrassed about my faith. If I am embarrassed about my faith, there is something profoundly wrong in my relationship with God.
Yes. So we received another question. This is a tricky question. It's about Elsa Nazra is asking you, what is the role of the media of telling the truth?
You know where you press the buttons, don't you? Yes, the media has a huge role in highlighting those issues. And we live, unfortunately, in an age and a time that the media has a huge impact on the society. And a lot of people, all that they know about an issue, especially about issues about other countries and what is happening outside, or comes from the media. So the media is very sensitive when they report on issues in the country, locally, or outside. It's very important that we encourage the media to be bold, truthful, and honest in reporting. Unfortunately, the media has not been honest in reporting, for example, what is happening in Syria. I come from Syria, I am engaged with the media always, and I believe the media is not truthful and honest in reporting about the war in Syria, unfortunately.
Why?
Because it has a political line. Okay. They take a side. And unfortunately, the first thing when the people know I'm a Syrian, they want to know whether I am pro-Assad and the government, or I'm against it with the opposition. I say I'm neither nor. I am pro my country.
Yes.
Syria is the red line. It's not Assad or the opposition. Yes. My concern is how to bring peace back to my country. My country is being devastated, destroyed. People are being killed. But the media in the West is biased and not doesn't engage always truthfully with the topic, with any topic.
So let's move on to the next question. What, in your opinion, could contribute to reduce the persecution of Christians?
What reduces the persecution of Christians or any religion is when we tackle the issue of fanaticism properly. When we address boldly and head on the reasons behind fanaticism, whether religious fanaticism or secular fanaticism. When we stop being politically correct and we don't speak because we don't want to offend. This awful thing in the West, and especially in this country, the UK. We don't speak because we don't want to offend anybody. No. Who told you that if we spoke about or against Islamic fanaticism, we are offending Muslims? Muslims will be delighted if we could help, if we could contribute to that issue. They would be absolutely delighted. I'm in touch with Muslim leaders all the time. I've been in touch with the interfaith and especially Christian-Muslim relations for years and years, for decades. Politically, the political correctness is harming the reduction of persecution to Christianity or Christians and other religions. We need to put the political correctness aside and be honest with each other and be challenging to each other with love and understanding. If I pose a challenge to you, it doesn't mean I hate you. It doesn't mean I want to hurt you. No, it means I am concerned about something you are doing. What's wrong with challenging each other and showing respect, love, and understanding? I would love to be challenged. I always say to my students when I teach or the congregation when I preach, challenge me. If you don't agree with something, let me know. We can always disagree in respect. Political correctness is harming a lot. Any religious, truthful dialogue in all the world. When you go to interfaith meetings and events, who do you see there? You see the same faces, and you see people who agree with each other. I know from the events I go all the time. I have dear friends there. Oh, hello, Sheikh so-and-so, and Imam so-and-so, and Rabbi so-and-so, and Father Nadim, hello. And we keep, talking, and we know each other because we appear in all the events. We agree with each other, and everybody put a lovely smile. We take pictures. They go on Twitter and Facebook and all the social media. Look at us. And then everybody does what they want. This is not interfaith. I'm sorry. I'm tired of that. I'm tired of that. If you don't agree, tell me.
Do you believe, this is the last question, do you believe the Christian community as a whole could play an important role in that?
Oh yes, absolutely. We could play a vital role. But the problem is, the Christians here in the West, they are the first to compromise. In any interfaith dialogue or in any interreligious meeting.
Why do you think is that?
Because they political correctness. They don't want to offend others. Well, please, don't worry about the other. If you speak in love and respect, you do not offend anybody. On the contrary, you open Pandora's box. Something I always say, if there is a infected wound, and if you go to the doctor and you say, look, you clean the wound and put something to heal it, but I don't want to have any pain. The doctor would laugh, right?
Yes.
So if you want to clean the wound, it's painful. If you want to heal the wound, and any kind of healing includes pain. We didn't have the resurrection in Christianity without the cross. The cross and the resurrection come always together. In one breath, always we talk about the cross and the resurrection. So if we don't clean the wound properly, it will gather more germs and it will be infected again and again and again. So we need to be bold with each other, loving towards each other, but at the same time, truthful, and tackle the issues as they are. If we can't do that, well, we will keep suffering from persecution and killing and violence and fanaticism. That should be dealt with properly, honestly, with the help of the media and with the help of honest people like yourself and the people who are watching and hearing us.
So, hello, Reverend Nadim. We miss you so much here in Syria.
From Syria then.
Thanks for your encouragement to tell the truth always. We ask you to invite all Western to come here, and may the picture of the Christian would be more clearness.
Yes, I mean, unfortunately, it's very, people are weary to go to Syria at the moment because of what is happening. And one day, Fuad, of course, we would love to take our friends from the West, from here, from the Awareness Foundation, to Syria and see you Christians there and listen to your concerns and the challenges you pose. I know, that Christians in Syria have a lot of questions to the whole church in the world. I know your frustration with the world and the silence of the world about your suffering, but this is part of the dynamics that we live in the church and with the world. Take heart, my friend. We are with you.
And one last question is from Nadia Pontes from Brazil. So, how is the Christian community dealing with fake news? by
telling the truth, by telling the good news and the challenging news, by not trying to put a glare over the issue and tackle it head on. There will be always fake news, my friend, but it's how we present the other side, and not to be silent, to raise our voices and to stand against fanaticism and stand against persecution and be positive and constructive. This is how we defeat fake news.
And one last question. That's nice. Thank you so much. So it's from Rin Issa.
Yeah.
What does Awareness Foundation do to help Christians in Syria?
So we have a program called Ambassadors for Peace, which is led in Syria by now. My sister Huda is there, and hello Huda, and she is leading a new Ambassador for Peace training. We are touching hundreds of lives, young people, and empower them to be ambassadors for peace, and practically, so that they can be in their own broken communities ambassadors for peace by leading projects there, by going to the street and see the needs of the people and tackle it head on. So we are very proud about our Ambassador for Peace program and Little Heroes. The Little Heroes is a program directed towards children who are displaced or who have seen nothing but war in Syria for the last 7 years. So we're trying to also touch thousands of young children's lives. And it has been blessed and a blessing to us all to work with this. It's been marvelous.
Oh, that's fantastic. And if you want to know more about these programs, you can take a look at Awareness Foundation website. Do you know www?
Yes, awareness-foundation, put the hyphen, awareness-foundation.com.
Okay, so just to finish our talk, it was an honor to be here with you. So
it's my honor.
Could you tell a message to young people who are watching us? Because I think it's important to engage young people with this.
Absolutely. For years and years and years, I worked with, I had the honor to work with young people. Don't think I'm an old man. I'm not that old, but in very early age, I engaged with young people, and we are still engaging with young people in the foundation. So my message to young people is be truthful to who you are. Don't underestimate your abilities to change the course of events. Stand up for what you believe in. Don't be identified by what you are against. Define yourself by what you are for, not by what you are against. stand up against fanaticism, violence. Be ambassadors for peace, whatever religion you are. Because if we believe in a loving, a creative God, then God wants us to be those ambassadors that take the message of peace, reconciliation, constructive life, dynamic life. You are full of life. Use it. For God's sake, use it. Time is very short. I don't know how I became 53. Time is very short. Use it to build a better world for yourselves and for your children.
Thank you so much, Nadim.
Thank you. Pleasure.
So we are receiving more questions. Nadim can answer them later because Nadim is very active on Twitter, on social media. So I think you'll be happy to answer.
Absolutely,
all the
very happy.
Yes. So I'll see you guys next month on April, where we have another Talks for Peace, and this time we're going to talk about the rise of far-right movements.
Wow.
Yes.
Exciting.
Yes. So see you there. Thank you so much for your participation, for your questions. See you.
Bye. Thank you.